Hey beautiful souls, Dante here, and thanks for tuning into the channel today. Today I genuinely want to try to make a quick one. So last week somebody responded to a video I made that's about the healing trap. You can go look at that video, and they asked a question that was kind of trying to get a deeper understanding about non-resistance and when we're in a pattern or moving towards something, when is it better to push through versus to not push through? And also something about coping mechanisms. I don't have the question word for word, but I'm going to elaborate upon that idea. So in the Healing Trap video, I talked about the tendency for us, especially in the spiritual community, to constantly be digging through the shadows and to have a preoccupation with what isn't working and what's wrong, rather than simply moving forward into the direction of our choice, following our heart fully. And so the pushing through is something that we actually learn in our society, that we learn to kind of push through to in athletics performance or in school. I remember that there was a lot of this encouragement that we have to really work hard, study, memorize things, and work. We are encouraged to work hard. We're a hardworking culture at large. And so when people push through, they often do it with that filter that they learn from society. And it's okay to push through something if it feels true to all of your heart. Now, there's an understanding when we're working therapeutically that we only want to bring to the surface a certain level of stuff, of resistance, negative beliefs, fear, and all of those resistances. There's only so much that you can work with at one time, because if all of it comes up at once, you go into a state of fight or flight. And in that mode, you can't actually heal. And so the idea then is to bring yourself back into a state of balance and equilibrium where your nervous system isn't kind of flooded with adrenaline and all of these other hormones that make us unable to be settled and to really think rationally, and to even go into those higher, more subtle qualities of the brain that connect to our higher dimensional selves. So we don't want to push ourselves through if pushing ourselves through brings up so much fear that those patterns start to work and we go into fight or flight mode. And we don't want to, even when we are doing shadow work, because there is a point to it, the healing trap perspective isn't that don't do any shadow work. It's just to understand that shadow work can be a more passive phase of the process. It can be simply a phase of integration, whereas the real work is in moving in the direction of your passion and embodying your love and expressing it. And that in alone is enough to bring these things to the surface. So then the idea is, if what you are doing is truly representative of your highest excitement, if it really makes your heart shine like nothing else does, if you know in a deep way that you have love for it and it expands you, and the idea of following that path makes you happy about life and grateful for life, then pushing through is the right thing to do. Though you want to push through step by step. You don't want to go all through the fear and resistance at once. You want to unravel that belief system. So one thing that's really helpful for this is the visualization. So say, for example, you're really afraid of writing someone or calling them up and asking them on a date, or you meet this person regularly in another scenario, and you're afraid of asking them on the date. So what you want to do is you visualize that playing out again and again. You visualize it in whatever way seems most likely and probable to you, and visualize both outcomes. Visualize the yes and visualize the no. And we want to look at both outcomes when we're doing this visualization work, so that we can really, in a way, let ourselves kind of release our attachment to the preferred path and let go. And we do that by letting go of the fear of the outcome we don't want. So facing it and going through the stages of what it would feel like kind of allows us to dislodge some of this programming in us, because we have these natural mechanisms that when we have a negative experience that hurts us, everything within us unconsciously is working to prevent that experience from happening again. So visualization, we're tapping into those subconscious and unconscious layers, and we're just giving ourselves permission to undo some of those programs so that we're really, in a way, courageous enough to say, yes, I'm going to go forward in this. And then, of course, visualizing the positive outcome is how we really get in touch with the joy, the love, the essence of ourselves that is what is guiding us to take a step forward in that anyway. So breaking through from that perspective is something that's just a matter of practice. You visualize it again and again until you can do it, and you sometimes will experience failure when you go and set forward towards your goals. And it's also redefining failure. Failure is success at learning what you really need to know and what resources you really need to experience real success. And sometimes you fail 1,000 times before you get there. And the sort of beginner's mind, from a Zen perspective, is what we all need, because it's that openness and willingness to learn and our readiness to kind of embrace whatever comes that's really going to take us to the next stage. Now, talking about the pushing through that isn't good. Pushing through is not helpful when what you're doing is out of alignment with your heart's excitement. When, say, for example, you're going to a job that is not fulfilling to you, you're settling for a relationship that doesn't meet all of your standards and doesn't really fill you with joy, or a friendship, or those are the clearest examples that I see commonly. There are many others. Or you're doing an obligation for friends and family that you don't really want to do, and you have resistance to it, but you push through it anyway. When you do that, you set yourself up for failure, in a way of, every program that you play out, you set at that time a sort of divot that allows the program to keep going. Every time you go through a negative program, it in a way gets deeper. And so you have, it can be more challenging to bring yourself off of that loop because you've done it so many times. So there's often great resistance there that is our ally. That resistance to doing the things that aren't really fulfilling to us is what helps us break out of those patterns and do something different. So when you're not sure about if what you are about to do is something that is really representative of your highest excitement, or if it's something that is coming from a lesser excitement, or from the mind's obligations, or from fear, you just need to take a moment to settle in yourself and imagine the process of that. Imagine the process from beginning to end, and notice how your heart feels in that way. Does your heart feel like it's expanding and it's radiating and pulsating this energy of love through you? Or does it feel flat? There's also cases where there is this expansion that wants to move through us, but there's a little bit of contraction, a little bit of tightness around it. And that's perfectly normal and okay. And in those moments, we know that we do need to push through. And it's just a matter of pushing through gently, is what I encourage, because gentleness and softness and tenderness are really high expressions of self-love. Discipline and beating yourself over the back is not self-love. Though we've been trained to think it is, because we've become such a goal-oriented world. But that is all changing. Now, pushing through is also something that I've done, physically a lot with yoga. Just push through to the end, push through the pain. And our yoga practice, or qigong, or whatever our practice is a great way to notice where our tendency around that is. When we feel our edge, are we afraid of that edge and we don't want to push it at all? Or do we want to just destroy the edge and be like, I am capable, I've got this now? So it's really important when we're doing this that we're accepting fully where we're at today. and we're accepting what we're capable of today. And we do just a little bit more every day. And it really is that practice of regularity and discipline, and allowing the divot, so to speak, to be in that positive loop and allow the positive divot to go deeper every time. Every time we play the pattern out in a positive way, it's easier to ride the wave of that pattern the next time. So, yeah, I was really pushing through things a lot in the past, especially with my body, and that actually came to hurt my body. Though I also pushed through a lot of times. For example, like every time I would come to lead a ceremony or do a channeling when I first started doing it, I was feeling a lot of anxiety. I would feel anxiety even as I was planning the events. And I knew that the anxiety and the excitement were part of that same core vibration, and that I just had to ride it out. And it was through loving and breathing through my anxiety in those moments and doing it anyway that I actually came to relax into it. And it's a continual process, because again, every time I do a ceremony or a channeling, there's a deeper level to it. There's an aspect of it that I haven't explored before. And there's always that slight anxiety. But I've learned to not make it wrong or judge it, and just sit with it and be accepting of it and show up for it anyway. Even making these videos, sometimes there's still that anxiety there. And I sit with it, I accept it, and I just love myself through it, and I do it anyway. And we all have to kind of get to this place where we can feel accepting and in balance, even when there is that slight thing that's off, and not try to overcompensate for that thing that's off. Because when we overcompensate for it or attempt to make up for it in some way, then we throw ourselves off. And then the fear behind that anxiety, or whatever the program and the emotion is, really comes true. So we just have to be non-reactive towards it and allow it to be present, and still show up to do what our heart is asking us to do anyway, doing it regardless. Now, everyone has some fears, and to be able to show up to those fears is a learning edge, and is so important. So I'm also one to say that, certain fears are in place for a reason. You may be afraid of wild tigers because wild tigers will eat you. And not many of us, or any of us, really live with wild tigers, so that's a pretty far out there example. Though you don't want to have this relationship with fear where you're always pushing through it and putting yourself in extreme circumstances to overcome the fear. And I did this in some ways when I was kind of early in this path, and I thought of the spiritual achievement was more important than anything else, especially more important than the material desires. So I went to India with barely no money. I also had a boyfriend at the time that used a crystal pendulum, and the crystal pendulum said we should go to India, and he offered to buy the ticket and said that in that 1 month before our trip we would really miraculously manifest if we followed our dreams. And so this is when I learned about, having too much trust in the universe and pushing through the fear too much, that I just didn't want to be afraid. I wanted things to just be okay. And I thought that if I was doing good in my meditation and yoga practice, this was 5 years ago, I was 6 even, I was very foolish. I thought if I just did that, I could overcome anything. And India was one of the hardest experiences I ever had. Most of my things were stolen on the first day. I had to ask friends and family online without really having anything to offer, because I was in fight or flight mode, to support me financially, just so I could kind of make it through. And it really wasn't that much money either that they sent me, because I didn't want to keep asking. I was just like, once please, hey, help, thanks, okay, I'm gonna do the best I can with this. And eating in gurdwaras and chronically sick with parasites, it was a lot. And that was the kind of initiation for me into learning to not push through everything, to not ignore basic common sense when it comes to fear, because fear is there for a reason sometimes, and sometimes it's not. And this was kind of an extreme reaction on my part to the unnatural level of fear that most people are feeling in terms of how much money they need in order to get what they want, and or even do well. And a lot of people think they need so much kind of cushion space and savings and this or that to make it through. And the truth is like our relationships and our connection to our bodies and the earth is actually our greatest insurance and our cush zone, because sometimes things happen that totally uproot you, and the money in your bank isn't the thing that's going to help you the most. So there is a need to push through the fear of scarcity. That's probably the most common fear that people need to push through, is their sense that I don't have enough of this in order to do that. It's like you need to set that fear aside when your heart is really calling you to something. And don't be totally unrealistic, like a young little Dante going to India with 150 euros for 5 months on a return ticket. 5 months later, yeah. Don't do that, but also don't allow your sense of scarcity to prevent you from following your dreams. And when, asking for support is really the biggest key that a lot of people don't know how to do, because people have had a lot of shame about this interdependence. We've all been taught we have to be really independent and strong, though this is an interdependent universe, and I have these skills because other people have these needs. They have those skills because I have these needs, and I can't do it all on my own. And none of what I have achieved has been through my own effort alone. It's been through a community and loved beings from the whole planet. So we need to be able to open ourselves up, because it's often that connection and support with others that allows us to push through the most. And not everything has to be pushed through. If it's true to our heart, we push through. And if it isn't true to our heart, then we let it be and allow that degree of resistance to be there. So I hope that's really helped. And there was a part of the question as well about coping mechanisms, and basically like coping mechanisms are things that distract us from our true joy. We may have addictions or certain relationships or certain behaviors because we're not living our true joy, but those behaviors or those substances or relationships kind of make us feel as if we have part of that joy. And so we have to really ask ourselves fully, in all moments when we're doing something we think may not fill us completely, is there something I would love more than this? What would that be? Or is there a way that I can tune up the love within myself as I'm doing this? How could I do that? And everyone in a core way really knows what is true to their heart. Some people say to me like, oh, I don't really know what I love to do. And I say, but you do. You're just not realizing the love you have for certain things you're already doing, and you're not doing certain things that you've always thought about doing but have been afraid to do. So it's within you, and I hope this has reflected to you enough of that light so that you can really get in touch with what is true for you, that you might need some breakthroughs around. So thanks for tuning into this video again, and I love you very much. I'm so grateful that people are following this channel and it's helping people. Again, shoot me your questions. And I will do my best to continue posting as many videos as I can, ideally 5 or 6 a week, maybe 1 daily. Who knows what I'm capable of. And my website is blissbeings.com. I offer one-to-one sessions, channeling sessions. I'm doing immersions now where I work with people for 3 months. And on the queue, I have a group channeling class where we work together to develop your intuitive skills, and the reflections from other people developing within the group also supports you. So that would be super exciting. And if you're interested in it, hit me up. We can talk. And once at least 3 people have signed up, I'm really happy to run that course. So much love, much gratitude, appreciation, blessings to you. And I hope you are enjoying the best day ever. Bye for now.